which is actually why I really liked the take two of it because I kind of just decided to like live in that world, even though it's not what actually happened. Because and I really liked that Jen did this where she gave it is kind of an alternative ending. But what I liked about it was that it showed the other side of if you get to the point where you want to make that decision to take your life, we do get to see the ramifications and the hurt that everyone feels. But then Jen gave us like the opposite of that, of if you do make that phone call, if you do reach out for help, what could happen and how life isn't better without you in it. It's better if you stick around and you stay.
Where are the quiet gays? Where are the quiet gays supposed to go?
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Lesbian Book Club. We are going to be covering the long-awaited, very exciting next book that Jen Lyon has written. And like Haley said in a previous episode, we've seen the numbers, so we know what you guys like. And also, judging by all the reviews we've seen Jen post of all you guys reading, yeah, this is a good book. And it absolutely destroyed Haley. I mean, it destroyed me too, but I feel like Haley took it a little harder.
Yeah, I'm unwell. I took it really hard.
I was more just like really into like well, I don't want to get into it just yet, but well, we should trigger warning this. Oh my God, there's just so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start. But trigger warnings for suicide, suicidal ideation, sexual assault. Anything else you can think of?
I think that about covers it.
Okay. Yeah. So just be kind to yourself. If anything gets too overwhelming for you, you are not obligated to listen to our podcast. Please turn it off if necessary. But okay, yeah, let's get into it. Loved the crossover from Senator's Wife trilogy.
I know. How fun was that to be reading, and all of a sudden there's little Easter eggs of Senator's Wife
Yeah,
popped in there.
when Sam Huntley showed up, I was like, bitch, yes. I
Yeah.
love her.
Yeah, Sam was a big character in this book. Very, very involved.
Which I loved because I really wanted to see more of Sam in the other book. So I'm really glad that she made an appearance and like a good, like solid character, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like I have some notes on the friendship that Sam and Dylan have,
Okay.
but a good dose of Sam is just the kind of thing that a person like Dylan needs.
Oh, absolutely.
hmm
Won't hear me disagree there.
First of all, let's talk about who our characters are.
Okay.
Our two main characters. We have Cam and Dylan, and these are
Cameron.
Cam Carrot, which is so funny because I don't know if Jen knows this or not, but the summer I turned pretty, which I talked about in the author interview we did with
Yeah.
Jen, because in my dream casting of the Senator's Wife, Caleb would be played by what's his face, whose name I can't remember at the moment, who plays Jeremiah in that
Oh,
TV
okay.
show.
Yeah.
But one of Belly's boyfriends, his name is Cameron, and they call him Cameron because when he introduces himself to Belly, he gets nervous and says,
Oh,
"I'm Cameron." And for the rest of the show, they call him Cameron. So then when I read that, I was like, does Jen know that?
that's so funny. When people have little nicknames like that for people they love. I think it's so cute.
Um, but yeah, so we have Cameron,
Yep.
and there's also Dylan, and it alternates between their points of views, which a question I have to ask Jen is, why is it that Cam's point of view is in the first person and Dylan's point of view is in the third person? And I think I know the answer.
Okay. What do you think the answer is? Because I actually didn't even pick up on that. So good job.
I think it's because, as we find out at the end, this is written as though Cam is writing a script of their lives.
True. Yes.
And so it would be written from her perspective, and she is not writing first person as Dylan.
Right.
Um, so when we are in Dylan's perspective, it's not truly Dylan's perspective.
It's what her idea of Dylan's perspective is.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
So that's what I think, and I'm interested to find out from Jen if that's true or not. But I can't think of another reason of why Dylan wouldn't be in the first person when it's on her chapters.
Yeah, you're right. It is. You're so right. I'm like thinking back now. Well, we'll ask her because she agreed to come on our podcast again.
Yes, she did.
So we'll definitely ask her. We'll probably have a little, maybe an Instagram story for you guys to give us your questions to ask her, and we will do so. Okay, yes. So we have our two main girls, Cameron, and Dylan Sinclair, which also I was like Christine Sinclair.
Yeah, and it's Cameron Kingsbury.
Yeah, exactly. I was like Aubrey Kingsbury, like here. Which I love. I love stuff like that because that's exactly how I would name characters in my book. But what I was gonna say, shoot, I had something on that. Oh, you know how like all of women's soccer is getting into cycling now?
Are they?
Yeah, Tobin Heath is like complete cycle person. Like she's doing like the Tour de, I don't know what she's doing. Yeah, like everyone's getting into cycling, and I'm wondering, like, has that been around for a while, or am I just not picking up on it? Because, like, I feel like Jen knew that.
I mean, I know that cycling is a great recovery workout, and also when you're injured, a lot of athletes will do cycling to do, some sort of activity that keeps you in shape but doesn't put a lot of strain on your joints or whatever the injury is on.
Right.
So maybe it's that, but I don't know about like, super long haul competitive cycling. I don't know if that's new or not.
Yeah, because I feel like Tobin is like transitioning from soccer into like cycling. But who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe Tobin will come and answer our questions about her personal life.
Could you imagine? That would be amazing. Okay, yeah, so we have our two main girls, and let's see. Dylan Sinclair is a triathlete. She's a short distance triathlete, which is like bike 1.5 miles. No, swim 1.5 miles, run a 10K, and bike, I don't know, a lot of miles because the biking is always the longest one. And then our girl Cameron is an actress, and Haley was telling me that she is foregoing her bid to play Alex from Senator's Wife, and now she would like to play Cameron, which I honestly think is a better casting.
I think so. Yeah, it's my new thing that I can't stop thinking about because this story, oh my God, when I tell you this story had such an impact on me, I cannot stop thinking about it. It's occupying like all of my brain space. I love it so much. It was so beautiful and heart-wrenching and devastating. And also I just loved the characters. And I feel like I want to be inside of this story. And I feel really sad that I don't think that there can be a second one.
No, there can't be. You don't have Dylan.
No.
Like, also, I got a text from my friend who was reading the book. And, okay, so we've all read the book, so it's not like a spoiler, right?
No.
Okay, she literally texted me all caps, Dylan kills herself. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, it's literally like it was like a death to like everyone who read it.
I know. Because these characters feel real.
I know. Jen is really good at doing what like Taylor Jenkins read. I'm sorry if you hear my spaghetti in the background, guys. I promise it'll be done soon. I just have to brown the meat. But I feel like she does what Taylor Jenkins Reid did really well in Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, where she makes these characters feel so real that when devastating things happen, you're feeling all the same emotions. It's like our brains, I mean, this is just like neuroscience, but our brains don't know the difference between our friends and our fictional friends, right? So when we get attached, it really hurts when something happens to these characters. Like we are going through all the same emotions.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like the same thing as when a celebrity that you really like dies
Yeah.
because you don't know them, but it's the same thing as a fictional character almost. I mean, they are very real people with
Yeah.
real lives and real feelings, but to you, you don't have a real relationship with them, you know?
Right. Okay.
So, anyway.
Segue though. Oh, she's like, anyway, back to it. And I'm like, segue. Um, what what celebrity deaths actually made you cry? Because I have two.
Um, you know, I feel like I might get some heat for the way that I'm about to say this,
Oh.
but because I don't have like relationships with any celebrities that have died,
Oh, okay.
I haven't that I can remember, I haven't actually cried over any of them, but what I have cried over is the empathy that I feel over all of their loved ones grieving them.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that feeling. And while I didn't know the person, and so I don't feel like necessarily a sense of grief over the fact that I've lost something or someone,
Yeah.
because I didn't lose somebody. I know that somebody else has lost someone who may have been like their whole world or that was very important to them, someone that they loved. And that is what makes me cry when a celebrity dies.
So you cry at all of them then?
I mean, not necessarily, but ones that, you know, I knew who they were and I've paid attention to, or that have like a particularly tragic story. Sometimes those are ones that get me.
Yeah. That's fair. I have two. I cried when Robin Williams died because I just absolutely loved and adored him. And then I cried when Chadwick Boseman died.
Mm.
That was really sad for me. And then to learn that he like shot all of Avengers like sick and going through chemo and like no one knew because he wanted to finish the project. I was like, oh boy.
That is very,
That was
very
bad.
sad.
Okay, now we can go anyway. Anyway, back to our characters.
Yeah, on that
On that sad note, because we will be talking about death in this episode, guys, so buckle up.
we will. Yeah, so Dylan is 28-year-old triathlete and a world champion Olympic triathlete at that. And Cameron is a 25-year-old actress. And we start out this book by they're in Hawaii, and Cameron is just leaving Danny's wedding, and Danny is her like lifelong best friend. Okay, so it's this destination wedding, and Cameron was a bridesmaid. She's leaving in this Jeep she rented, and she's going on this like very windy road in the dark, and she had just gotten this huge phone call delivering big news saying that she just landed like the role of a lifetime, playing the most hyped up character of the most hyped up book series, bigger than the Hunger Games, bigger than Twilight, like all of that. So anyway, this is big and she is emotional, and smack, she hits Dylan Sinclair on her bike. And Dylan is with her friend and Great Britain national team, whatever, triathlon teammate Kyle Wood, and Kyle is
Kyle.
yeah, he's quick to be combative and is super mad at Dillon or sorry, at Cameron, obviously, because she just hit Dillon and could have killed her. And Dillon, after being like, dude, what the heck? And my bike is wrecked, and refuses to get in the truck with Cameron because Cameron offers her a ride. She's like, I saw how you drive.
Which is a funny line.
I know. She decides to like walk with her mangled bike on her shoulders, just super stubborn. Anyway, so that's their introduction to each other, which is, great way to start things off.
Yes.
And anyway, they end up staying at the same hotel, and Kyle sees her, and Kyle's like, oh my god, that girl's staying here, blah, blah, blah. And then Dillon is like, maybe I should ask her to dinner. And they end up going on a date, they hit it off, blah, 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 and now, voila, we're in the world of Kam and Dillon.
Yes. Good intro there. Very good. Really liked it.
Thank you. So, right away, obviously, there's some sparks because Dillon does not want Kyle to make Kam feel bad about hitting her, even though Kyle wants to, and Dillon is hiding the fact that she's going on these dates with Kam from Kyle. And sorry, at the beginning, Kam is 23, she's not 25, so there's a 5-year age gap between them. But we find out that Dillon has this like super easy confidence about her. She's pretty smooth. She's got a sense of humor. She is a little bit arrogant, but she's she's genuine and she's witty, and she has a pretty clear idea of what she wants generally. And Kam is a lot more shy and timid and a little unsure of herself, and also has, up to this point in her life, been straight. So she thinks.
How all good stories start.
Yeah.
Was this book, or was I watching something else? But it was like, yeah, all girls are straight until they're not.
It was this book.
Okay, I thought so. Does it Sam say it?
Yeah, I think it was Sam.
Makes sense. But which is true. All girls are straight until they're not. So
I guess.
Okay, I guess.
I mean, I don't know if like Dillon is. I feel like Dillon popped out the womb gay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was like talking about like exact sexuality. I think it was talking about how like it's more fluid. Like, yeah, of course, some people just pop out gay. I mean, we all pop out gay. We just don't know it. We just don't figure it out until we figure it out, you know?
Yeah. But Dillon is famously gay.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where we get one of our senator's wife crossovers, and that is Kelsey Evans, who actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't she the winner of the Balloon d'Or?
The Ballon d'Or? Yes.
Ballon d'Or? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, she was the winner of that over Alex, and she's a very high-profile player in England. And her and Dillon had been dating, and then she ended up marrying none other than
the goalkeeper.
Oh.
Abby Sawyer.
Yeah.
There we go. I thought that. Yeah, you're right. That wasn't the goalkeeper. I knew it was Abby Sawyer, but the name was escaping me. And then I was like, wait, you think it's the goalkeeper? No, Abby Sawyer. Yes, Kelsey's marries Abby Sawyer, but previously it was dating Dillon. And we get their whole kind of backstory, which I thought I loved where Jen placed it in the book. And I know we'll get there, but I liked the Kelsey backstory of this. And yeah, we'll get there.
It was a really sweet key moment. Yeah, and this ends up playing into a lot of Dillon and Kam's relationship, with Dillon's reaction to fame, and Kam landing this massive role where she ends up as a very high profile person.
Right.
But Kam right now is what we call a baby gay.
Mhm.
because she has never kissed a girl. She's never even considered that she might like girls. And all of a sudden, here she is with this girl who's making her feel things that she's never felt before. And she's thinking, oh my God, maybe this is why I've never really actually been interested really in any of the men I've dated.
Right.
So she talks about how never in the 8 years of her erratic dating history had she ever once wanted to reach out and touch a man so badly that her fingers were shaking.
Yes, I remember her talking about this because I listened to the audiobook, which was done brilliantly by Abby Craden. And I remember her saying that and being like, I feel so seen because I get the whole like not even considering that this is a point of view until you actually feel those feelings for someone else. And you're like, oh shit, like this is what this is like what they're talking about when they talk about like actually having feelings for someone. Because yeah, I just thought it was a beautiful way to put it. I love Jen Lyon. I'm not
I
gonna
know, me too.
lie.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to ask you about that too, because
Yeah.
I feel like you are in a unique position where you found this later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I did too, a little bit, but not as much. Like I feel like I had a pretty common like, oh, I went to college and
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
exposed to more than like a small town had to offer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that viewpoint because it really like you don't know until you've like actually experienced it sometimes because you're like going through the motions. You think that like, oh, I have this like long-term relationship with a guy and it's great and he's nice and blah blah blah. But then you're like smacked in the face with like actual chemistry. And you're like, oh shit, like this is different. Why is this so different? This whole idea of who I was is being flipped on its head, which is really scary, right? And for Cam, like her being an actress and now landing this role and these things like happening simultaneously, that could be even more scary.
Hmm.
And then especially when she learns about, Dylan's fear of fame based on her relationship ending with Kelsey, like I could see how that it's such a whirlwind of emotions.
Yeah. That in itself, that leads me to think that Cameron is very securely attached, the way that she handled Dylan's fear and the way that she handled her Kelsey situation, the way that Dylan handled it. Because if I were in her position and I knew what Cameron knew about how her and Kelsey ended,
Yeah.
which, okay, let's just say that in case anybody is going, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Kelsey got very, very famous over how good of a soccer player she is.
Yeah, during the World Cup.
Hmm. And the press went crazy and was all over Kelsey, and Dylan was collateral damage of that, basically. And during this time, Dylan was about to go into the Olympics, and her and her dad were not in touch with each other because of the coach that she had would not allow her to be in contact with her dad, and her coach was very abusive, and her dad ended up killing himself right before the Olympics, and that was obviously devastating for Dylan. Dylan ended up going and competing in the Olympics in honor of her dad, and the press ended up finding out about this and took it and ran with it and came up with all of these stories about how Dylan is a narcissist because she competed even though her dad just died, and just wrote like really horrible, horrible things with this person that's going through like the worst time of their life and grieving, and really had no compassion for the situation or the people involved. And Dylan couldn't handle that and the attention and the publicity and all of it, and ended up breaking up with Kelsey. And none of that's Kelsey's fault. And Dylan knows that. Everybody involved knows that. And so Anyway, Kelsey was left heartbroken. They were in a pretty serious relationship and had been dating for 3 years. And um, Kelsey just had to kind of go on her way and keep doing what she does. And Dillon was kind of a recluse for a while and has stayed as far away from the press as possible. And now she's being faced with this woman who she's falling in love with, who is inevitably going to get a ton of attention. And now there are choices to make about how they handle it. And um yeah, so Cameron knows that history and rightfully is terrified that Dillon will just split and walk away like she did with Kelsey. And even though she's scared, she handles it in, I think, a very measured way. And if I were Cameron, my anxiety would be out of hand. I think I'd be like checking in too
Yeah.
often to make sure that everything is fine. um, which is not helpful. But yeah, that's, I mean, a loaded situation for the two of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of baggage and they're both really young. But what I love that Jen does is sets up opportunities for growth for all of her characters because you're like, okay, you've been faced with a situation once and this is how you handled it. And now, Dylan, we're going to face you with the same situation again and see if you can handle it better,
Yeah,
which I love that type of plot setup.
yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an author, right? And I'm like talking like I'm an author. I feel like you have to set up your own scenarios of where you want your character to go. And I thought that this was like a good one. I like a mirrored image type thing where you have to like look at your former self and be like, I know you handled it this way. Let's try again, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So there's that going on. Um, they have a lot of run-ins too with just like random people. Like Isaac is this man that keeps coming in every once in a while and likes to kind of bring Dylan down a step. He is the husband of a racer that she
Yeah.
races with, and he himself is an Iron Man, but like it sounds like he's an Iron Man because he can't really be fast enough to compete in anything else. Um, but Cameron handled him so funny. It's like the same situation that Dylan later introduces Cameron to her mom, like for way
Yeah.
further in the book. And they end up in these scenarios where Dylan is afraid that Cameron, because she can be shy and timid, will be out of her depth.
Right.
And um, Cameron proves that she is a multifaceted character that can handle her own. And so, anyway, Isaac is bragging about all, putting himself on a pedestal and how he's just like really great and whatever.
Yeah.
And Cameron knocks him down a couple levels and is like, oh, so like you're old and, anyway.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, in the situation with the mom too was really great because the mom was just not really thrilled about Cameron, and she had the same concern about what all of this level of publicity was going to do to Dylan's mental health, essentially.
Right.
And so she wasn't really accepting Cameron when she brought her home for Christmas. And
I don't know if it wasn't like an acceptingness of her or more of just like a fear of like, because obviously if somebody who has past mental health issues, right? And somebody where suicide runs in the family, which I thought was an interesting thread, and I want to talk about it at the end of the book.
Mhm.
The mom has like every right to be like, okay, you're getting into the same such situation a second time. Like
Mm.
she's just scared. I think she's more
Yeah.
scared versus like not being accepting. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I think you are right there. Um, and Dylan is listening to this conversation. Nobody knows that she's there.
Yeah.
And the mom is like, how do your parents feel about you being an actor? Because, it's basically on the same level of prostitution. And Cameron is like, well, you know what they say? There's only one profession that's worse in LA than a prostitute or an actor. And the mom was like, oh, what's that? A lawyer. Is what
Lawyer.
the mom is. And there's this long moment of silence and touche, Cameron. And now they're fine. And it's like she just had to prove that she wasn't gonna fall over and let this woman walk all over her.
Exactly. Exactly. I thought that was so funny. I was like, damn, this is like she's gonna do okay in Hollywood. Like if she can go toe to toe, like she's gonna do okay.
Yeah, and I think part of that too, in this specific scenario, is that Cameron is showing that she is serious about being there and being part of Dylan's life, and that the mom can't scare her away. Like, I think that that part is kind of a test of will from the mom of like, how serious are you about being here? And is me being mean to you gonna scare you off? Or are you gonna run away and leave Dylan out to dry? Or are
Right.
you really here?
Right. Which is fair for a mom to do. I'm not gonna knock it for that. But she passes the mom's test, so that was nice.
She does. Um, it's also funny because there's a flip side to Cameron, obviously, which is why Dylan was worried about her. And one of my favorite lines in this whole book is when Dylan says to Cameron, as Cameron is having this like panic attack over something, Dylan was like, Cameron, I would tell you to relax, but that might be a little like telling a drowning person to swim. And that's that's when Cameron first went to Dylan's place
Mhm.
or hotel, whatever it was. Like they first went home with each other,
Yes, very
and
good.
Dylan was like, "Okay, I'll tell you exactly what's gonna happen." And they had to have a schedule for the night, and I'm like, that feels incredibly me coded. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie here.
very earth sign coded for sure. Like here is the rundown of what's gonna happen, so we're both clear and have no unexpected expectations.
Yeah. Oh, it was too good. Um, but we start to get into where she goes in for like pre-production and filming, and she meets Margaret, the author, and she again has a soccer last name.
What was
Same
it?
as Vanessa from who used to play on Angel City.
Oh,
And,
Gilles, yeah, yes,
yeah.
I caught, I caught that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. She used to play in Angel City and now she's on loan.
She's
Um,
never coming back to
no,
Angel
she's been
City.
on loan for so long.
Like, I wish they would just take her off loan so we could have that roster spot back.
It's so funny that that's still a thing. But anyway, you want to talk about how that first table read went?
So, yes. First of all, I want to talk about Margaret, the author, because I felt like it was very much a call to Margaret Atwood, who wrote Handmaid's Tale. And I felt like, that was kind of being drawn in there because this author had like kept her book rights for like 40 years and didn't let anyone do it, and now has like a very heavy hand in the production, it seems like. As she should. Like she finally gave these rights to do this movie. She wants it done correctly. And at the first table read, freaking Cam is terrified. She's
Mm-hmm.
so scared. She feels like she's not doing well, which she's probably not. It's like the first table read. I can't imagine that that's going to be like perfection. But it's the producer or the director, one of the men in the room is like giving her a hard time to the point where like Margaret, the author, has to step in and be like, "You're doing great. Like, just do you, you're going to be great. Like we picked you for this role, you know?
Hmm.
Which I feel like having like another woman in the room is, and not just because they're a woman, but definitely has like a camaraderie in there when you're in with a bunch of men being like,
Yeah.
listen, like we got it. We got it. We got this
Hmm.
together, you know? And I felt like that's what this scene was. And I thought it was really endearing.
Yeah, it made me love Margaret. I loved this scene. It is 1,000% the girl power that we need.
Yeah.
And especially the film industry is such a male dominated environment.
Yeah.
And I work in it. I know the kind of air of authority that a lot of the executive male figures walk around with.
Yeah.
Like they are it. Like the final word is them. And there's so many women in the same position as them that
Don't act like that.
yeah, and they have the same exact role and the same exact amount of power hypothetically, but I watch them get spoken over or they act so timid and these men just take over the whole thing and think that it's like all about them and what they want and they're
Yeah.
running the show and it's like we've got to switch things up here. It's insane. And a lot of times, the guys that are speaking the loudest have the least idea of what's actually going on.
Right. Yeah, they're
Which
literally the
is,
dumbest.
yeah, infuriating. Like the amount of times I have watched the person who is spending the most time with their mouth open waste the most time, be so inefficient, have the worst ideas. Nobody likes it, but no, everybody's scared to speak up.
Yeah.
It's just insane. And I think that what's happening in this story is a great show of how we can avoid that. You know, like there are these male figures, and there's also those women, but the women don't fall over and play a doormat,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And Cam starts at the very bottom with no power. And she ends up working her way up to a place and she feels that she has no power and she ends up in this position for the majority of the book where she's in a situation that she hates because she has no power and it's where she has to have a beard, she has to not literally, she has to have
Yeah.
a Carson beard. And she has to have a PR relationship and pretend that she's straight and pretend to be something that she's not and hide who she loves and she ends up taking her power back and that's what women have to do and professional women cannot just hand their power over and allow men with a loud mouth to talk over them for no good reason. I hate it so much. Anyway, that's my soapbox of the day.
I love your soapboxes every episode.
We do.
Um, yeah, so they have the first table read, and I think that Margaret sticking up for her gives Cam like a little bit of confidence going into the rest of filming. But I want to talk about her co-star.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I fucking hated him at the beginning, and then I loved him.
Mhm.
Remind me his name. I'm so bad with names.
Okay, so there are two co-stars.
Yes.
There is Elliot, who's who you were talking about.
Yes. Yes. I loved him. We find out lots of different details about him. But at first, he's like that stereotypical. He reminded me kind of Don Adler from Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I know you haven't read that yet. And we're going to do a redo of that one for sure. But like this Hollywood guy who can get whatever he wants, knows how the game is played. I think they compared him to like kind of a Leonardo DiCaprio character.
They did, yeah.
And like womanizer. And we meet him and he's very brash. He's such an asshole. He like also low-key assaults Cameron.
On screen, yeah.
Right. When like in front of a full room of people. Like they basically were like, we're not going to tell you what this scene is because we want your like reaction and your acting to be like very true and like genuine. But also, like, I don't feel like this was what was in the script, right?
It was unscripted,
Right.
and they have no intimacy coordinator on this set, which an intimacy coordinators are a very new addition to filmmaking. It's a new profession, and also the industry standard of what an intimacy coordinator does varies widely because it's so new. But it is kind of a new standard on a film set that on days where there is any sort of intimacy, whether it be kissing or sex or anything like that, nudity, there will be an intimacy coordinator. So, to
Which I have
not
to say, big
have
fan
one,
of. Big fan.
yeah, absolutely. It makes everything just go a lot safer, and it's more comfortable generally for actors. There are some actors that say that they don't like it because they want to just do whatever and not be like choreographed. But the thing is that it is choreographed anyway,
Right.
and this allows for all parties to have somebody, a safe third person that they can go to voice whatever they want to
Right.
without feeling any sort of pressure, and this person helps them do the coordinating. It's a very valuable position to have in the film industry. So
Yeah.
this person was not present on this film set at all, and it's something that got left out of Cameron's contract, that she would need to have an intimacy coordinator on set, which is a big overlook. And it sounds like maybe she didn't have a lawyer look over her contract, and also like her agent didn't flag that in the
Right.
contract, which is a kind of a big red flag for your agent. Like, what the heck? But anyway, um, so what ended up happening was exactly what you said, is that they were able to just spring that on her, which nowadays shouldn't you shouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
Um, and so for Cameron, that's super violating, and it happened in front of, there's hundreds of people on a set like this,
Yeah.
and all of them are watching you. So she essentially, yes, she just got assaulted in front of hundreds of people watching, and nobody said a word. No
Yeah.
one stood up for her, nobody stepped in. And then the director came in and clapped and said it was brilliant after. And she has to walk away from that and not say anything because she's scared to lose her job.
Right.
And she has to come back the next day with the same people and be super close with the person who did that to her. And in front of everybody who watched it happen.
Yeah. Your feeling of like safety is completely gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's
That was
been stripped too of any sense that she had that like she is a full human being with feelings in front of these people.
right. So, how did she like get over that and continue filming? Because I mean, well, can we talk about what actually happened? Because I know that he like pushed her up against the wall. I don't remember what happened like specifically further though. Do you
He
remember?
like kissed her really aggressively, pushed her against the wall, grabbed her. If I remember correctly, he like stuck his hands underneath her clothes.
Yeah, I thought so too. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty significant assault. Like, yeah, now I regret saying I like him. um, yeah, it just I can't imagine being in that situation. Like, what are you supposed to do? Right?
Yeah. And the thing is that a lot of women have probably been in that exact same situation,
Right.
or one's very similar. I mean, the entertainment industry is famous for being riddled with men forcing women to do things that they didn't want to do to keep their jobs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Um,
filming continues, and
yeah.
Dylan is in training for one of many races that she does. Are we at the crash part yet?
No.
Okay, I think so. I was like, and then she crashed.
um, so Dylan flies back to, or yeah, Dylan flies to California to do a race. And they spend Christmas with each other in California. And this was really sweet because they go to the Santa Monica Pier and they're underneath it. And she only knew that Cameron's skin smelled faintly of jasmine, that her mouth tasted of peppermint from the tea she'd sipped as they strolled along the pier. And oh my God, my melting. They talk about the story of Dylan's dragon tattoo for her dad, and also her other tattoos, which are trigger points for Dylan because they have to do with Enrique. And I think that maybe we should talk about Enrique.
Yes. So he is the coach that Dylan had straight after her dad. So her dad had coached her in triathletes her whole life until she got like really, really good to the point where like he was like, she got attention from sponsors, from coaches, and they decided that they were going to go with this guy, Henri, for training to get her to the Olympics. Lo and behold, this reminded me of the gymnastics doctor, Larry Nasser. That's what this reminded me of. So this guy emotionally manipulated and cut her off from her family, which is like a classic sign of an abuser. If somebody comes into your life and starts telling you that your friends are not your friends and your family is not good for you, like that is an attempt to isolate you, and you should run.
Yep.
But she was a child and she went to Germany to train with him, and he started sexually assaulting her, and their training also reminded me of the Karolis, where it's like very like Russian and like very like stringent and arduous. And like she did this one swim and he was like, you think you can do it faster? And she was like exhausted and she was like, no. And he like made her run 16 miles to get a tattoo on her arm that said quit or never, like die trying, basically. Like don't quit, but die trying. But like a tattoo on a minor forced, like it's so abusive. And the fact that he was also like raping her.
Yeah.
Throughout his training, he made her cut off her parents, made her think she was crazy. Like, yeah, she had success, but at what cost? Like a cost that no one should really have to pay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, I remember in the book, her saying that like these are, from Dylan's perspective, like these are really innocent questions for her to be asking because she doesn't know the story behind them, you know?
Yeah. It's really, really, really sad. That storyline really broke my heart.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, is that one of Dylan's biggest competitors is a girl who is under Enrique's training currently. And Dylan knows that the same thing is happening to her at that moment. And at the end of the book, it's not like what the reality was, but in take two, they end up like filing a lawsuit and he gets suspended from the World Triathlon Organization. And all of these girls that he trained come forward in this lawsuit against him. It's just like, it's sick. It's really, really sick.
Really horrible, especially to know that like this is such a common experience in elite sports, especially in women's elite sports. Ugh, it hurts a lot. Like we've seen the abuses in the NWSL with coaching. We've seen it in USA Gymnastics. I'm sure it's in tons of other ones that we haven't heard about yet, but I'm sure we will. So yeah, it's just a shit show for just women trying to compete at a high level. There's like an inherent cost of possible abuse that you're going to step into.
Scary. Um, so back to Dylan spending the holidays with Cameron in California.
With Cameron's family.
Dylan's mom and sister actually conspired to get her to go and spend the holidays with Cam, which was really cute because usually she spends the holidays with them. She hasn't missed a single year since her dad passed away, but they were like, come on, you actually like a girl? Go. Go out there. So she goes, and they end up going to Danny's family's house, and Cameron's parents are there, which Cameron hasn't talked to her parents in like 2 years, so it's kind of awkward, but
And to bring a girl home. You haven't talked in 2 years and you're bringing a girl home and they don't know.
right. Yeah. And they pretend that Dylan is just her friend. But I mean, Danny immediately, the second that Dylan walks in, like hates her guts because of the dyke vibes, and
Dyke
Danny is like bigoted. um, Also, I think Danny is super jealous that somebody would be closer to Cam than her.
Yes. Yeah, it's that very possessive, almost incestual female friendship where they're both probably gay, but neither one of them know it. And now, Cam brings home this girl who I'm sure is hot. And is like, she's like, hey, hold on. This is my best friend. Stay away. She's also just a jerk in general.
Danny was so awful. She's very self-involved and has very little ability to think of anybody outside of herself.
Yeah.
Always. Like, I can't think of a single instance in this entire book where she ever truly thought of anybody outside of herself.
No, not at all. But
and this book had like a 2 year span.
Huh?
This book had like a 2 year span.
I know. I loved that though. I loved that. I was like, this book covers a lot of years.
Yeah. That's a long time to not think of anybody else.
Yeah, right.
But Danny, yeah. Also, okay, I want to talk about this friendship, because obviously at the end, Cameron ends up deciding that this friendship is not worth it to keep anymore.
Yeah.
Like she has her last thing that she can handle, and she's like, I am done. I am out. You are not a friend, okay? Yeah. And I just am wondering what took her so long. And I understand that this is a lifelong, like, she's familiar. She's family, literally right. Familiar,
Yes.
But even then, there's only a certain amount of times that somebody can be the worst person alive. And you're like, oh, it's okay. I'll give him another shot.
Yeah, but I do think it's harder when it's like a childhood lifelong friend. You always feel like, yeah, at some point I'm going to have a backbone and like stand up against them. We saw this in another book that we read. I forget which one it was.
Was it the Telegraph Club?
Yeah, with that friend of hers. Yeah, we talked a little bit about it there. It's just harder to do with someone you have such history with,
Yeah. It wasn't even just over like Dylan. It was everything.
No, literally everything. She hated everything that Cameron did.
Yeah.
She could never do anything right.
Yeah. She's not her friend. She's a hater.
Exactly.
Completely.
She gives Dylan quite a hard time. And that's just a theme of Danny giving Dylan a hard time throughout the entire book. For no reason.
Yeah. So yeah, they have the holidays. They spend the whole night there. They go through the whole thing, and then Danny makes them come back for brunch, and Dylan is like, oh my God. But anyway, Cameron is like, oh my God. And Dylan is just enjoying watching Cameron like have to stick out this whole thing.
Yeah.
But they go home and they have sex for the first time.
Yeah.
And this sex scene, oh my God. Dylan asks Cam for consent, and it was so hot the way she does it. I was like,
Tell us because it's not coming to me.
okay,
You know you have it written down.
let me find it. Okay.
Because I also think consent is sexy. I think it's fucking hot to be like, in the middle of something and then be like, hey, do you like this? Are you okay with this? That's hot.
Right, yeah. In the book, it's on page 139 if any of you want to follow along. Let me find it. She says Cameron is saying that she doesn't know what to do. And Dylan is saying, it's all right. I happen to be somewhat of an expert. And then she's like, do you doubt me? And then she kind of starts like putting her hands on Cameron and untying the dress. And then she says, is this okay, Cam? And it says her playful insolence was gone, her hands stilled, waiting for permission. She meant it, I realized. She wasn't pressuring me. She wasn't pushing toward the end game. I could have told her no, and there wasn't a single particle of me that believed she would have made me feel small or met my hesitation with resentment. I won't lie, her search for her consent was an incredible turn-on. Yes, I think I articulated. I couldn't hear my voice over the ocean of blood crashing through my arteries. Yeah.
Also, it seems like it's the first time anybody has ever actually asked Cameron for consent based on her
Probably.
reaction. Like, it's such an interesting feeling because I remember the first time I got asked for consent and I was like, wow, like I actually, not that like, do I have a choice, but like, I could say no.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally trust that she would not continue. That's a nice feeling because there's no underlying fear. And I'm not saying
Right.
it's like only particular to like gay relationships. I think it's for everyone. But I feel like there is the power dynamic with like men and women in like sexual relationships where it's like, yeah, but if you say no, like he could kill you. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously not necessarily that drastic, but it is that drastic sometimes. Whereas like when like in the book or like, any of our experiences where we're actually asked, you're like, oh, actually like that's nice that I know that I have the option to say no and that it's not going to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved the scene. It was really, really cute. And then the sex scene was so hot. Like Jen went to town on the sex scene.
Yeah, she did. And Abby Craden reading it was so good. I'm telling you, Abby Craden deserves all the awards. I like
Oh,
in my headphones listening and no one knows what I'm listening to.
but then Dylan. They have this wonderful, wonderful time together. And then Dylan freaks out because the news is announced about Cameron's role in Sand Seekers. And Dylan goes, gotta go, and flies back to London without saying a word and says she needs time and then doesn't even contact Cameron for a week.
Oh, I would be like, we are done.
Oh my God, I'd be so upset. And then Sam here, this is where I'm saying that someone like Dylan needs a Sam because Sam tells Dylan that she messed up by leaving things how she did with Cam after getting the news. And it's so good to have friends that are honest with you. And also, like, if you're Cameron, you're the other person in the relationship, you hope that your partner has friends that are honest with them.
Yes.
And that, aren't going to like feed into any delusion that they have, that are going to be like, okay, hold on, back to reality, Missy. Like, what are you doing up here, spiraling into, no man's land of freak out time? Bring it back. And Sam is that, and the thing about these two is that Dylan is she's stubborn and she's a strong personality and she is strong-willed, and what she forms an opinion on, it's not like easily movable. So Sam also is a very strong personality and is loud about what she thinks. And so she's also not easily intimidated or intimidated at all, maybe. So she's not afraid of that aura that Dillon gives off, and she's okay with people being mad at her. So she's okay with going up to Dillon and being like, yeah, what the heck, bro? This is not cool. Like, let's go. And then being okay with going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then if Dillon's mad and is going to storm out, being like, yeah, okay, whatever, be that way.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Um,
Very Taurus coded. Say to my fellow Taurus over there.
yeah. And then also, I thought there were so many times in this book that I was like, oh, this would make a great movie scene, and that was one of them, was the scene between Sam and Dillon. And also this next one is same thing, where Dillon is getting the same kind of feedback that she got from Sam from her sister Saren. And it would also be a great movie scene, and they are like sitting in the meadow together, and it's the kind of relationship that you can only have with a sister. Like a sister, I feel like, is one of the few people that can make you face yourself in this way that happens. Like
Well, tell us what happened.
yeah, so they're sitting there, and we find that, well, we know this about Dillon. Dillon doesn't talk about things. She doesn't like to tell people her feelings. She likes to just do what she thinks she should do.
Yes.
And Saren is a really good sister, and she's always very concerned about her little sister Dillon, and just tries to help her whenever she can. And so up until this point in the book, we know that Dillon blames herself for her dad committing suicide, but we don't really know why. And so it's in this scene that we find out what happened, and that Enrique had said something horrible, and the press took advantage of Dillon during that time, and that, like, this is her villain origin story about her fear with the girls that she likes getting famous, right? So this is where Saren is like, it's not your fault, and you have to face yourself and get over this fear, and you can't do this to this girl. This is a nice girl. You can't just keep running away. And like, really, it's the kind of forcing somebody to face themselves that can only happen between sisters, because when you're sisters with somebody, that's such a deep bond, and like, you can say something to, you can tell somebody like what is at the very depth of their soul that they don't want to hear, and then they still come back to you even if they're mad or upset about it.
Right. Yeah. You can't really do wrong. They're always going to be there, so you can kind of tell them those hard things and know that it's not going to break the relationship.
Right. Yeah. So I loved that scene, and I think particularly because I am a sister and I have a close relationship with my sister, so it spoke to me. But yeah.
And one of the things that she says is like, it was your dad's choice. It was our dad's choice, and his choice alone. It's not your fault. And suicide is never anyone's fault, but the person that ends up taking their own life. And I don't even want to call it fault, because I have such I want to say I have a soft spot for suicide, but like it's not a black and white thing, right? It's a very, very deeply gray thing when it comes to suicide, and talking about it and experiencing it like through other people and whatnot. But it's no one's fault ever, but it does leave people feeling guilty, which is really sad.
Right.
Where are we going from?
Well,
Now we're almost at the crash, right? I'm just
Getting
like waiting to get to the crash.
closer. Dylan ends up flying back to Cam and surprises her. But what this scene made me laugh too because Cameron is a mess. She's been devastated over um, Dylan ghosting her, essentially. And she also is starting to blow up. And people have been coming to her door and calling her phone. Like her phone number got leaked, and so people have just constantly been calling her and be like, "Oh my God, it's her!" and whispering and whatnot. And so somebody knocks on her door, and she opens, and they're like, "Are you Cameron Kingsbury?" And she says, "Yeah." And then this guy like tries to kiss her, and they're laughing and they're drunk and whatever, and blah blah blah. So scary, really, really scary. There's like multiple men at her door, you know. Yeah, and so she ends up like shoving the door shut and getting it closed, but they were trying to push into her house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a few minutes later, the doorbell rings again, and she walks up and, "You even think about coming in here? You better watch out. I'm gonna," and she has like something in her, she has a bat in her hand that she's
Yeah.
gonna hit these guys with, opens the door, and there's Dylan standing there. And Dylan's like,
You good, girl? What's happening?
um, so that was funny. But yeah, they end up making up. Dylan apologizes to Cameron. That was sweet and all. But anyway, so the next thing that kind of happens of note is that Sam and Cameron meet for the first time. And when they do, Sam is really, really mad at Dylan because Dylan had just like disappeared off the face of the earth for a while, which she has a tendency to do, and it scares everybody because of her mental health problems. And so Sam shows up at her door and is like banging on the door and is like, "Dude, what the heck? You scared me so bad, blah, blah, blah." And then Cam walks out, doesn't know who Sam is, and flattens her. Like she's taken self-defense classes and did a bunch of stunt work in the movie, and like literally just swipes the legs out from under Sam. But the thing is that Sam is an amputee.
She is like a para-Olympian too. But
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny. And I was like, oh, what a good girlfriend. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Sam, instead of being mad, thinks that's hilarious and is a huge fan of Cameron, by the way, because she loves the Sandseekers. So anyway, they become fast friends. Kelsey and Cameron meet then at Sam's birthday party like a day later.
Yep.
And this is what we were so excited at the beginning to talk about because they actually have a really great scene together. And Kelsey is a girl's girl.
Yes.
So Kelsey comes walking up and, well, first it's Kelsey's friend, and Kelsey's friend is like being mean to Dylan and Cameron because she's defensive of her friend. Yeah. And Sam is like, "What the heck? No, Dylan's my best friend. You're going to be nice to her, blah, blah." And then Kelsey walks up and she's super nice. And she's like, "Oh, hi, how's everything?" She doesn't know that Cameron and Dylan are dating. So she finds that out later when she's talking to Cameron, and it's just the two of them, and Dylan is out dancing with Sam. And she's like, "Oh, I'm really glad. I'm really happy that," and she's like genuine about it. It's not that like weird, like, "Oh, I'm happy for you guys." She's genuine, and she's like, "I was actually kind of stressed out and worried about like seeing Dylan here because I recently got engaged, and like I didn't know if her feelings would be hurt or like if she'd be upset, and I'm just glad to know that I can tell that she really likes you, and I'm glad to know that she found somebody that matches her and like she's gonna be okay." And that was so sweet. And I really, really loved that. And that's a true girl's girl. And also, I think that's a really good example of when people break up, being able to, like, that's an example of somebody that healed,
Mhm.
you know? And she was able to see the person past the hurt that she inflicted and want the best for her, like genuinely.
Yeah, like a genuine, that's when you know that they genuinely cared about each other.
Right. Yeah. But Dylan doesn't like that they became friends and gets kind of defensive and is like, well, what new things did you learn about me? Like, she assumes that Kelsey said something bad about her.
Right. Yikes. Which is like
Yeah.
just a fear defense mechanism for sure,
Mhm.
but silly. But she's like, no, like it was fine.
Yeah. Then we get a little reference to an American senator facing arms smuggling charges, which would be Carlton Cleveland, which crazy. And then we have Elliot giving a phone call, and this is where we start to have a little change in opinion about Elliot because he calls Cam and he's like, "Hey, I know there's been this leak and people are having speculations about you being a lesbian. Big old gross lady lover, and I know how to fix it, girl. I got money. I care about you. And listen, this whole thing, I really hated being an asshole to you, but Grady Dunn, that's the other co-star. But Grady and JR and everybody, we all agreed like this is what I had to do to make you like really good in your role. We had to make you hate me because you were so nervous and we like needed you to really do well and blah blah blah. And I want to help you for
Men make a
I know.
decision for you
I know.
about you and how it should go. Isn't that so fun?
I know. And people like us need to stick together, which means he's gay.
That
And
was a shocker. That was a good. That was good. That got me. I
I
was like,
know
oh
he's a good
yeah,
actor.
yeah.
Yeah, and so he pays for a cover up about this leak that she's a lesbian, and he suggests that she get a beard. So she calls Carter, and that's her high
That's
school
a bold move.
boyfriend.
That was a bold move to call Carter.
I know,
That
but
was
I think genuinely he was a good guy, and she knew that, and she trusted that he would keep her secret.
yeah. I just don't know if I would trust somebody outside of the industry, you know?
But also, like, he cared about her, and he met Dylan, and they got along really well.
Yeah, you're right. It would just be weird to like navigate an entire industry in like a secretive way if you like weren't from it, you know? Like you didn't know the ins and
Yeah,
outs.
yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
But yeah, so he's her beard, and this new friendship between Elliot and Cam uh sparks, and we kind of see it for the first time in full bloom at the London premiere, which Dylan is secretly well, she's not secretly there, but like they're secretly together. And he shows her who he's with, which is actually the DP from the second unit of their film, which is crazy. Um, and then they leave for the night, Sam and Dylan do, and Sam is writing poems for Saren in front of Dylan, which is hilarious because that's Dylan's sister, and
Yeah.
Sam is hopelessly in love with her and is writing all these like sex poems about her. So, um, they end up getting in a fight, Sam and Dylan, with these men.
Yes. That was so Dylan is like constantly getting her body wrecked. She got hit by a car, and we didn't talk about like the extent of her injuries in that one. Now she gets into like a verbal and then physical altercation with these men, and she doesn't even tell Cameron about it because she like blames it kind of all on Sam, like, oh yeah, Sam's a hothead. But then like has like I don't know if she has a black eye or like a chin hit or something because they get into like an actual fist fight with these dudes.
She got stitches on her head.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah, I knew there was a headshot that happened.
Yeah, she got a black eye in the beginning
Yeah.
because she got kicked in a swim.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I knew I
Um,
in there somewhere.
but yeah, so they get in this fight, and Cam's at the party, so Dylan doesn't want to call her and like ruin her night. Um, but
Swear to God, if my
anyway,
girlfriend got injured or attacked or something and did not call me immediately because I was like at a party, I would be mad.
I would be,
I'd be
yeah,
livid.
furious.
I'd be
But
like,
also, Dylan had a fair point that like it wouldn't have mattered if she called her because Cameron, in her like premiere outfit on the night of, the London premiere of the biggest movie of the decade, can't just show up at this
she's right.
PR.
She's right. She's not wrong.
Yeah. So anyway, um, I wrote down the end of 268 was so sweet, but why?
But why did
Oh,
I?
286, not 268.
You
Like,
transposed those
is
numbers.
it?
How many pages was this book? I don't even remember because I did audiobook.
419.
Damn, that was a long book.
Okay. Oh, so it's the poem. It's Sam is getting like tucked in by Dylan. Dylan's taking care of Sam after this like head injury she got after the fight, right? So um she goes into her room, and then Dylan makes a poem about Sam, and she says, I once had a good mate named Hunt, whose
Yeah.
prowess was only a front. She talked a big game to live up to her name, but in reality was only a cunt. And Sam's grin widened. Look at you, a proper poet. I thought that was so cute.
They have such a good friendship.
They do. Yeah, so then there's more between Cameron and Dylan's family. She returns and bonds more with Dylan's family, gets closer, and she has a conversation with Jacqueline, that's Dylan's mom, about Dylan. And I liked I think this set me up to be more devastated at the end, but I liked how well Cameron was able to like integrate with Dylan's family.
Yeah. Why do you think that? Like, what part of this part made you think or had that impact on you? Just because they all got along so well, or
Yeah, well, I think that Cameron was really starting to become part of the family, and Saren and Jacqueline really liked her, and she was kind of like spending a month at a time there with
yeah.
this family,
That makes
baking with them and decorating with them and having fun with them and living like a day-to-day life and talking about like intimate things about Dylan,
yeah.
and then at the end to just have it cut so violently and have it be too painful to be around them. um it's just like so heartbreaking.
Yeah, because it was kind of almost like the family that she didn't have. Like things with her parents were rocky, her friends kind of suck, and now she's with this girl who has this very, tight-knit family, which everyone wants to have a tight-knit, relationship with their family. And yeah, for at the end, it just being too hard is really devastating for Cameron. Not only is she losing Dylan, but she's also losing this connection to these people that she's made.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and now we're at the fall.
Okay, good. Good. I've been waiting for this.
Yes, you
Um,
have.
because it's devastating. It's such a turning point in the book. And so Dylan's in this race and she's qualifying or something for the next Olympics and everything's looking good and fine, but the racer in front of her falls. And Cameron, like, or not Cameron, Dylan has this like almost like flash before her eyes of like, I can't swerve. I'm going to fall. Like I'm gonna have this impact. And the thing is, there when you're like a competitive cycler, your shoes clip into your bike because it's better for like the aerodynamics and body kinesthetics, whatever. So she falls and she messes up her knee so bad. I'm pretty sure it's an ACL, right?
It's not the ACL, but there was a giant hole in her cartilage.
Oh, right. They thought it was her ACL. They did the scans, they came back, and yeah, it was like just this other, career ending injury. But Dylan like isn't going to accept that, and she's very strong-willed. And Cameron, through her connections to the film industry, has found this doctor who will take on cases that other doctors say are like impossible. And this doctor takes her on, he does this surgery, and he's like, you got to like give it the rest that it needs, no competing, blah, blah, blah. But Dylan like does not heed the doctor's warnings. And so much so that this doctor who operates outside of insurance agencies, operates outside of the norm, drops her as a patient, which is like crazy for a doctor to do. You have to be like really going against their medical advice in order for doctors to do that. And she competes in this race. I want to say it's in Japan. Is that right?
Yes.
And she has to come in the top 20 and she ends up coming 21st. And so then she's like, I got to do another one. I have to qualify. And she ends up not even starting that race. You really see like a mental health deterioration between her going against doctor's orders, her coming in 21st in this race, not qualifying, and then this next race that she's going to do that she doesn't end up competing in. Like her mental health is just in the toilet. And I think that that's also like a really big problem in elite sports, men's or women's, is like when there is something in your life that has defined you for so long, being a top athlete, being a triathlete, being a actress, whatever it is, and that thing gets taken away from you, you almost don't have any sense of self left. And that can be a really hard hole to crawl out of because you have to completely rebuild your identity,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many people have the mental fortitude to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of mental health crises within even like college athletes, professional athletes, and even before it gets to the point of when you lose the sport, like when you get an injury, because the thing about it is that an injury can happen so fast. Like you have this thing that defines you one day, and then the next day you don't. And but even before it gets to that point, there's a ton of pressure involved in this thing. And people are looking at you and expecting you to do a certain thing, and you yourself are putting a lot of pressure on yourself to do a certain thing, and the stakes feel high because if you don't do this thing, then where's your worth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if it's a team sport, then maybe you feel like you've let down the people on your team who have also sacrificed as much as you have. And if there's people sponsoring you, you might feel that way too. Or, if you have family that have sacrificed for you, you might feel that way. So there's a lot of factors involved here as to why your mental health might be affected in an elite sport environment. And Dylan is kind of a cultivation of all of that, a culmination of all of that, because there's her dad kind of made the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
And she feels a ton of guilt from that. She puts a ton of pressure on herself to perform to the top level that you possibly can. I mean, she's going for the Olympic gold and she expects to be a world champion every year. Yeah. And she expects to not only win every race, but to perform, like outperform herself every single race that she does. And she has the trauma of Enrique that she is faced with every single time she goes to a race because he's also there. And there's just a lot of factors here. And then you add onto that an injury that is career ending. That is worst case scenario, honestly, in a case like Dylan's. And we see her character really change. She, becomes very dissociated. The people who love her recognize before this even happens, like, we need her to not be so strung about this because it's all she cares about, and she gets like more and more and more intense about this training and doing well, and she even is dishonest about the training that she's doing, like how much she's doing and what she's doing. And the people that love her are trying to step in and she's not listening to them. And so people are recognizing signs, and it's starting to get out of hand. And then she starts to get very distant. And then obviously the leads race happens where she doesn't even start.
Not only does she not start, she again does her whole dropping off the face of the planet thing, and
Mhm.
everyone's calling everyone they know, because it feels like something's different about this one, especially for her to not start a race. Like that's so out of character. Like it's so far out of character that there's been all these little warning signs, but this is like a giant one, because this was like her last ditch effort to qualify for the Olympics, which is the only thing she wants. And, and yet she hasn't even shown up. Like that's very concerning to the people that love her and know her.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do we tackle this next part?
Yeah. Um, Before we get into this, can we talk about her love spoon?
Her what?
Her love spoon. Dylan gives Cam a love spoon on Christmas in the castle that they break into. So they Cameron asks Dylan, like, "Are you still happy with me?" Because she's seeing all of these signs in Dylan, and
Right.
she is feeling Dylan distance herself, and she doesn't know if Dylan still is happy and loves her. And Dylan, it's like she kind of wakes up from whatever she's in for the day and is like, what a silly question. Like, of course I do. Come on. And they go to this castle. They break in, they go through like a sewage tunnel, whatever, a drainage tunnel under the wall. And they have this really special time up in the tower. They end up getting caught. But while they're up there, Dylan gifts her a love spoon, which is a Welsh tradition where you give like a little spoon, and it's on a necklace for Cameron with their initials engraved in it. That says, or what it stands for is that it's a promise, and it says that you love this person. And Cameron is like, I'm never going to take it off. Not at the Met Gala, not at the Oscars, not anywhere. And yeah. Um, so I thought that was really, really sweet. So Dylan gives her this promise. And shortly after, we have the really, really heartbreaking ending of this story, which is she leaves the start line at Leeds, and she goes to a light tower. Well, she sends a text to Cameron that says, I'm sorry, I love you, and then immediately turns off her phone. And
That is so alarming.
yeah,
That is such an alarming thing. Like, especially for somebody who's not in a good mental health space, a text to receive, like from that person, I would have to like get on an airplane. I don't even know, like, if, I'd have to just get to them,
hmm,
because that is scary. That's a scary text to get. And then the
yeah,
phone turning off, and yeah.
yeah. Um, she goes to the beach, to this lighthouse that she used to go to with her dad, which is why she got the dragon tattoo, because there's a cave under it. Her dad used to tell her a story of there was a dragon that lived in there. And the tide was coming up, and she hiked up to the top of the lighthouse, and her dad had told her that if you were to swim in that water in high tide, no one could survive it.
Right.
And so she knew that. And she thought about calling Kam, and then she thought about calling Saren, and then threw her phone off of the top of the lighthouse and jumped.
Which is so sad because it feels like some part of her didn't want to do this. She had the thoughts of like calling, and yet she didn't. And what a space to make a decision out of, right? That's why I think it's so gray when it comes just to suicide, is because the people that do commit suicide, they really are in an immense amount of emotional pain.
Mm-hmm.
And emotional pain is almost worse than physical pain because you can't see it, you can't prove it to anyone. And sometimes you can't even articulate it to anyone to the degree that they would need to understand it in order to understand you. And yeah, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. But um and there's the devastation that suicide leaves in its wake of
Yeah.
all the people who are going to be affected by it. Because no matter what, somebody loves you. Whether it's just your family, whether it's your friends in your family, whether it's like a worldwide community, like, what Robin Williams, right? He committed suicide. It doesn't matter. Someone loves you and you're not better off gone from this world. You're just not. Anything can be fixed with like the proper help. And I can't believe Jen took this turn in this book. When I saw that she was going up to the lighthouse, like I knew what was coming. Um, did you see it coming or what did you think?
Yeah. Ever since Dylan started to like distance herself from people a few chapters before that, I think my heart rate was at like 140 the whole like just
The rest of it.
the whole time reading it. Yeah. And people kept talking to me while I was trying to read this part, and I was like, shut up. Don't. You don't understand the emotional pain I'm in.
Yeah.
Somebody I love is about to die.
Oh,
um, uh, but anyway, it was, yeah, I saw it coming, and I she was thinking that like it's over, everything's over. Like I'm not gonna go to the Olympics.
mhm.
Nobody's gonna think anything of me anymore. Enrique got what he wanted. He was proved right. Like how am I gonna explain that to Cameron? She's not gonna like think highly of me anymore. My mom's gonna be disappointed in me. And the thing is that something that my therapist has told me over and over again is you don't know what somebody is thinking until you ask them.
Yep.
And what Dylan fell victim to is very common in that she thought the worst about what people were thinking of her. And Dylan cares. She like most people do. She cares what people think. She wants to do well for the people that she loves.
Yeah.
And for her, letting down the people who matter to her was like the worst thing that she could have possibly done. I think that was even worse to her than at that point, it wasn't about like she's not going to have a gold medal. In her mind, she let everyone down. And if she had been able to go have a conversation with Cameron, with her mom, with Saren, and really hear them, because in that state of mind, it's hard to hear somebody when they speak to you and take it to heart. Then she would have known that that's not how they thought about her. And it doesn't change their opinion of her because she didn't start a race.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the stakes of that race were to her. It was important to them that she was there.
Exactly. Yeah. To the people that love her, she's not just you know, she's not just her accomplishments to them. They love her for being a person.
Yeah.
Not because she's an Olympic gold medalist or she's anything other than just the fact that she exists. They love her. They don't care about anything else. They just want her there with them. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And so we get then the end is split up into like take one and take two. And take one is what happened, which is Dylan committed suicide. And then it goes into what were the ramifications of that, what happened after that. And Cameron, she kind of knew, and she gets a call from Saren that they found the body. And Cameron ends up canceling her upcoming film because it was too dark for her and the state of mind she was in. Her mom comes and spends quite a bit of time with her. Saren goes to the Olympics, wins gold, and sobs on the podium. I'm gonna cry.
So that was almost even more heartbreaking to me. I don't know why that part hit me so hard, but that hit me almost harder than,
God.
taking her life, because just again, the ramifications and the impact that suicide has on people is so traumatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sister, oh my God.
Haley's in tears, guys.
Yeah. That sister bond.
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive about sisters, if you guys haven't picked up on that. I have a little sister too. And she did spend many years almost dying of cancer. And yeah. I have done a lot of imagining of what that would feel like. And so it's not hard to imagine how painful that would be. And for her to know that Dylan was supposed to be there winning gold. That's just so heart-wrenching. And Cameron, God, Cameron had the love of her life. And her whole future with her is gone. And she has to spend the rest of her life dealing with the pain of that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what could have been. Which is actually why I really liked the take two of it, because I kind of just decided to live in that world, even though it's not what actually happened. And I really liked that Jen did this, where it is kind of an alternative ending. But what I liked about it was that it showed the other side of if you get to the point where you want to make that decision to take your life, we do get to see the ramifications and the hurt that everyone feels. But then Jen gave us the opposite of that, of if you do make that phone call, if you do reach out for help, what could happen, and how life isn't better without you in it. It's better if you stick around and you stay. Because in take two, she does make that phone call. She does call Cam and is able to obviously not make that devastating choice. And they they basically get to live happily ever after, right? They get and with not without challenges. I mean, they take on Enrique, they try and they take him for all he's worth. But they're happy and they're together and there's not this devastation that ends up happening.
Yeah. And then it ends with her saying like, and that's how it should have gone.
Yeah.
And you can just feel like the hurt and the anger. Oh my God, I'm never gonna be okay from
It's
this.
not okay. You can get mad again in our next episode when we talk to her.
Yeah. Oh, it's so upsetting.
I know. And everyone's like crying about it. I like all the reviews. Again, I told you that my friend texted me like devastated, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I saw your story. I was like, oh, my poor Haley. I was like scared because I was only on like scene 42 at that point. But it is a really beautiful book and one that does, I think, reflect life really well.
Yeah.
Devastating and heart-wrenching as life can be sometimes.
Yeah. It was very real. It was beautiful. Their love story was beautiful. And sometimes really beautiful things and very painfully.
Yeah.
Oh, Jen, why?
Jen's such a good writer. Only a good writer could get these like emotions out of people from like words on a page.
Yeah.
Well,
Days later, I'm not even
seriously,
reading
days
it
later,
right
Haley
now.
finished this a while
I'm just
ago.
thinking about it. Oh my God. But I think that we should talk about what I texted you.
Oh yeah. This was crazy.
Yeah.
Literally insane. Yeah.
So I've spent sleepless nights when I should be sleeping because I have a job. Thinking about the casting of the film of this.
Yes. This was so funny.
And okay, I think that Dylan,
Mhm.
I'm having a really hard time with Dylan actually because I have like obviously multiple people that could play her, but none of them are actors.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't think of a single actor that is Dylan-esque.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Jen who she would cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But who came to my mind first was Nikki Hiltz.
If they can
And
are able to be less sweet. That's what she wrote that day.
that's exactly, yeah. Nikki Hiltz, if they can act slash are able to be less sweet, because if you guys don't know who Nikki Hiltz is, they are a professional runner.
Oh, I
And
love her or them. I think she has they them.
yep, they're non-binary, yep.
Yes, I
Um,
love them.
and they are a very big
Advocate.
like activist for non-binary and transgender people and athletes, and they're really fun to watch. I actually got to watch Nikki in the Olympic trials like 6 years ago or something, which was really cool. It was like way before they were getting much media attention, and I wasn't there to watch them. I was there to watch my friend Elise, which Elise won that race. But it was really cool. I got to see Nikki. And then on the same lines, so if you guys follow soccer, you might know Fish, who they've stepped away from Angel City, but they used to do like a lot of the community stuff for the Angel City soccer team.
Yeah.
I also think that Fish has like a Dylan vibe,
Okay.
but same thing, they'd have to like be less sweet, and also they aren't an actor, so I don't know if like they would or could act, but
Right.
they used to be a college soccer player. So like they're an athlete, and Nikki's a professional athlete who runs, and both of them have the sort of like physical vibe that
I could see
Dylan
that.
is described with.
Yeah.
But then what was really crazy is I had just texted these things to Lauren, and then the next morning, the universe went, haha.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I see you because Fish posted on their story, and the song, you can like attach a song to a story,
Yep.
was called Enrique. And I was like, what?
Literally crazy.
And then Nikki that same morning posted that it's race day in Hawaii. And I was like,
Wait, where our whole story saga started with what?
yes. And they hadn't raced since the Olympics.
And
And I was like,
literally,
oh
I
my
got all
God.
the caps. WTF, literally the people I casted putting out things from the book. Am I insane? And I was like, whoa, what? That was
I
so
think I'm psychic because
fun.
things all the time. I'll be thinking about somebody and they'll text me, or like I this morning. I think so. Just this morning, I was like, Usually when I get a day off, like I get a casting, and sure enough, I had that thought this morning while we've been sitting here. I've gotten 2 auditions.
Oh my God.
I
Use that power, Haley. Let's win the lottery.
I swear to God, I'm psychic. I don't know what is going on.
It's manifesting.
Mhm.
Okay, so 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Is that what we're giving this book on the pod?
A
Are we
thousand
gonna
out of
knock
10.
it down? 1,000 out of 10. Like, are we gonna knock it down though for devastatingness?
No, we give it points for
999.
devastating us.
Okay, extra points for devastatingness. Yeah, let us know what you guys thought of the book. Did it devastate you the way it devastated Haley? Because poor thing has been in shambles.
Yeah.
But our next book is The Christmas Pick. It's a short little read. Ella Schaefer and Rena Safin White is a co-authored book, and it's about this like Christmas town that is Christmas 365 days a year. And these 2 girls, one who's definitely gay and one who didn't know she was gay, because that is a common trope in these books that we're reading, meet, and it's really cool. I don't think we've I don't think we've read a book that is double like co-authored.
I don't think so.
And what's really cool is I actually know Ella Schaefer from my evangelical days. And she reached out to us to do this book. And I was like, hell yeah. Are you gay now? Like, what's going on here? But they also agreed to come on the pod. So we'll have another authors interview for you guys. And I'm really excited. Ella is such a sweetheart. And I met Rena at their book launch party, which was very cool. They both worked for Hallmark writing Christmas.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I was like, Haley, did you know? Do you know them? So yeah, that's gonna be really fun. So get reading. You can buy their book on Amazon. They have an ebook, they got a hardcover, they got a soft copy, like all the things. So get reading. It's gonna be perfect in time for Christmas, a Christmas listen. If you're at home with your family and you don't like them and you want to get away, you can listen to our little podcast on the Christmas pick and be all happy about Christmas.
Yeah. Thanks guys for hanging in there with us today.
Yeah, seriously, thank you guys. I hope you guys didn't cry, but also crying is cathartic. So maybe I hope you did cry a little bit.
Yeah, we love you.
Bye guys, love you.
Bye.